Start recording. Okay, we're live.
Hi.
Hello. Let me also... Sorry for the few minutes delay with dealing with a few technical issues with my VR hardware, but should be fine now. Hello. I'm gonna post the announcements as well. Let us know if there's anybody in the chat. Let us know if you can hear us fine. Where's Discord? Everything's being bad. Come on. Discord, there we go. Posting this. Posting this. Hello? Do we have anyone in the chat already? Anyone watching? Post another one. Ooh. Ah, it popped. It's popping. There's people. Hello. Hello again. Hello, it's Viral. Hello, Quatorium. Hello, Manu. RH86. Check the focus are going blah. Hello, can you hear us fine? Is the audio fine? Also, because I restarted, I need to redo this. There we go. It's kind of cold here. Hello and welcome. Welcome to another episode of Resonance. Also let me make sure so I can see the preview. There we go. Hello Noble. I just woke up. Hello BD underscore. Hello Tom. Yeah, this seems like we sound good.
Make some siren noises.
Yeah, oh! Alright. I forgot a bus just stopped in front of us. It's fine. It's gonna... There we go. It's fine. It'll go away in a second.
I guess I can make some siren noises.
Yeah.
There. Is that siren noises?
Hello. They can't actually see. I'm showing them the bus right now. Go away, bus. Shoo. We're not getting on. Go away, bus. There we go, good bus.
Get out of here.
Shoop.
The bus is very active this time of year in this part of the world.
Yeah, it's like everybody's, going for Christmas. And this is like Christmas, a winter kind of environment, which is like why I picked it. Yeah. So, I'm gonna... Oh, it's actually funny, you can see it like behind us, like flying away.
It's like a wild animal.
Okay, so audio's fine. Welcome to another episode of Resonance. This is like a weekly podcast, usually, where you can ask anything about Resonite. Where you can answer questions, whether it's technical, whether it's about the team, the philosophy of the platform, the history, past, future. Whatever you want to ask, feel free to ask. Some questions we will redirect you to some different sources, like, for example, the moderation office hours, or the art team office hours, and so on. There's probable prime ones too. So we'll try to give the best answer. For some things, like we might redirect you to teams handling certain things. We might give you a much better answer than we can, but you're always free to ask. And some of the questions, if they're kind of repeated, we'll probably just give you a summary and direct you to like our existing videos, because clips from this streams, some of the most interesting questions or most useful questions, we clip and they're available on our YouTube channel, so it's kind of easy to kind of go back and just direct people to answer them. Oh my god, I just saw the buzz blast stuff. Yes, we also have a new section where we'll be showcasing some of the community stuff, and we'll also have like an announcement today regarding some of the priorities and things we've kind of already been focusing on in the background. Oh my god. Oh my god, thank you, Jay.
Wow.
I haven't heard what the stuff is. Oh, they're going... Interesting. They don't respect the gravity. The gravity is so weird. But yeah, so we have like some announcements too, which is like one of the new things we'll be doing is like where we'll introduce some of the things that we want to do through some of these streams. So it's kind of like, you get to ask us questions about it right away, and we get to kind of, explain it, and then we have like, better materials to pair it. So stay tuned for that. we're gonna go through questions from this. Oh my god, thank you, Cryotox. Thank you. What was I saying? Yeah, we're gonna go through questions from Discord first. We're gonna go through some of the Twitch ones as well. If you want to ask a question like live, make sure to put a question. We need to put like question mark at the end of the question. So, oh my god, thank you, someone. What was I saying? Make sure to put a question mark, that way it kind of pops in our chat, and like, you know, we don't miss it. Probably at some time, like, we might do like a full hour or something, depending how time goes. We will go, you know, through some of the community stuff, and we'll also, you know, get to some of the announcements we want to make about some of the stuff we want to be focusing on, or that we have been kind of focusing on in the background. So we'll see. So with that, let's get started. Also, I think I forgot to mention I'm Froox, and I'm here with Sire. Let's move the camera here. There we go. And let's start going through the Discord questions. So the first one, this might be out of order, by the way. It should be fine. So the first question is from a computer user, fake. They're asking, the phase 1 requirements on the road when you GitHub discussion mention Quest support. Is the Quest 2 included in this, or is it referring to headset with Quest 3 levels of performance? I understand if it's too early development to have a good answer to this question. So, I don't believe there's anything between Quest 2 and Quest 3 that would just make it not work. So it's gonna be more like, you know, the way the difference between these two would be is like, you know, more like a difference between, you know, say high-end PC and, you know, maybe mid-PC. If you have high-end PC, you can do a lot more stuff. You can do a lot more complex worlds. You're gonna get, you know, better frame rate, like, you know, with like lots of users. If you have a lower PC, then you might need to, like, you know, lower quality some more, and maybe you don't get as much as many frames in the same scenarios, but you can still run things. So I believe that's gonna be, you know, just a case of that, except, you know, on mobile. I don't think like it would just fundamentally not work on Quest 2 when it works on Quest 3. We probably don't want to like any requirements that would make it like, you know, a Quest 3 exclusive. Next question is...
Same person.
Oh, it does. So it's from the same person. One thing we're also gonna ask, actually, like if you're asking questions in Discord, please keep one. Make a separate message for each question. Don't lump multiple questions into, you know, single message, because we actually found this causes some issues when making the video clips, because usually the way, like when I try to quickly cut the clips, I will just grab the timeline. Oh my god, thank you for being on the score. Oh my god, so much. Just floating away.
They're floating away.
Oh my god, thank you.
They have helium in them.
There's helium. They're just flying into the sky. Do I need to move this or something? I put like a thing here.
I think it's funnier to have them flying in the sky.
What if I do this? I'm just gonna do this in case. We'll see what happens.
Just aim it right at our heads. That's good. It's great.
Yes. So, what I was saying, yes, please make a separate message, because during editing, I usually just grab a timeline, so I can be, like, you know, because I can, on the timeline, I can very quickly see, like, oh, this is on screen, so this is this question. I just find, like, point, like, where I bring it in, then I find point where I bring it off, and, you know, that's my start and end of the clip. It's super quick, takes, like, you know, like, I don't know, 20 seconds tops to like clip out a question. If it's multiple questions lumped into one message and we bring it as one message and I want to clip one of the questions, then I actually need to like listen to the whole thing and just scrub along and find where that answer to particular question like, you know, starts and ends, and that takes a lot more time. So please, for the future, like keep it, make sure it's one individual message for each question, just so they kind of, you know, separate it. So a user that asking previous questions, also asking less important questions. What are the specs for PC used for VR, and what VR setup are you using? I'm actually running on my laptop because my laptop's faster than my desktop. I don't have like the best hardware myself. The laptop is pretty beefy. It's not as fast as some of the computers that people have, especially with the the 3D cache chips. It's like it's a laptop RTX 4080, and it's like an Intel i9 like CPU. It has like 8 power cores and 16 like efficiency cores. I don't remember the model number from the top of my head. It also has 64 gigs of RAM and a bunch of hard drives. And I kind of use this one a lot because like I travel like a bit, so I have like, you know, beefy PC and I can run VR like even like when I'm not at home. And because it actually like I benchmarked it and it's actually faster than my desktop, I just use it for VR. I'm streaming from it. They kind of at some point want to like, you know, build like a better PC, so like it's kind of because this one it doesn't handle some of the heavier stuff as well, especially if I want to do streaming. So I'm thinking about one of the X3D like CPUs, but you know, costs money, so and it's not a huge priority right now. So eventually, but it's pretty decent for VR. And so, do you want to share yours?
Yeah. I'm running a for my CPU. I'm running a 7800 X3D, so that's one of the 3D V-cache chips that Froox mentioned there, and it helps quite a bit with like just crunching when I'm playing like video games. It's really good. It was really good for Resonite pre-splitting, and it's great for Resonite post-splitting because of that cache. I think it's got something crazy like 96 megabytes of like L3 or something. And then my GPU is a 7900 XT with 20 gigs of VRAM. And
20?
Yeah, 20 gigs of VRAM is very nice to have.
Yeah, I wish I had more.
NVIDIA likes to skip out on the VRAM, man. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't really feel like I've been missing much from NVIDIA. A lot of the AMD tech has caught up quite handily. So that's kind of my specs. I mainly run an AMD card because I use Linux, and they work a little bit better on there. And it's been pretty good.
Yeah.
I've actually been going strong on Linux for about a year.
Nice. I've been kind of like thinking about like I kind of would want to switch to AMD cards, like in part like, you know, because of the VRM thing. The main thing that's been stopping me is because I do a lot of like photogrammetry and stuff, and oftentimes that just works on NVIDIA, which sucks. And that kind of keeps me on it. Which I wish like they would like, you know, support the open standards like OpenCL rather than just making CUDA specific, but it's what it is. And it's kind of, you know, them keeping the vendor lock-in.
Yeah. Usually what I see when I've had what some of my friends tend to do is they'll like take their old NVIDIA card and they'll like shove it in, sorry, my game lagged. They'll like shove it in a server or something. And then they'll use the server for all those tasks and use the AMD card for the rest.
Yeah, but then we need, you know, 2 GPUs. Because like a lot of it's like compute heavy, so like if you want a lot of compute for like, you know, the processing, cannot go NVIDIA. It sucks. Next question is from Fluffy. It's a long one. This one I think actually know what this is. Like they're asking what are your thoughts on the idea of various departments in mentor organization with tiers of accreditation testing, so mentors could specialize in Flux components, avatars, Blender, various levels of depth, and have different badge to display for it to speed up deployment of mentors to specific problems needing to be solved. So this is actually one of those questions that might be best to ask at moderation office hours, because moderation team is responsible for the mentor team. Personally, I feel like this feels like it might be like too complicated, because like, you know, there's a lot of training. How do you like verify like different things? Like, you know, it's adding like a lot of requirements and structure, and that might like become a friction point, and like, and the different badges, you know, on display, like that's gonna be hard for people to recognize, because, you know, we already have a bunch of badges, and like we tell people like look for somebody with a mentor badge. Now we have to tell them like look like if you want this, look for somebody with this badge. Or look if you want this, look for somebody with this badge and this badge and this badge. And there's like 10 different badges. Like that will become overwhelming, especially to new users. So I don't think that part would be a good idea. But feels more. So like when I'm not sure like what's the best, like what's the underlying problem you're trying to solve? Is like just finding mentors who can help with specific tasks. It might just be better to have like some system where mentors can say like I can help with these things, and then it just and if you have like for example, if the user goes to the user help, they can be like I need help with avatar, and mentors who can help with avatars will naturally react. And then if we have mentors, look if somebody going like they need help with Protoflux, then mentors who do with Protoflux, who are confident with it, can help with that kind of thing. So it's just finding the mentors with the right skills. I feel like maybe making it like not too rigid, but like making something where it's easier to like find the right person. Like maybe like they could like list it somewhere. But it depends like how people like find mentors to help with things. But it seems like the easiest thing is just in the user help, just ask, be like I need help like with Protoflux, and then mentors who who can help with that can be like yeah I can help. So we'll see, but ask the moderation officers hours, maybe they'll have like some like ideas with like stuff they wanted to do. Next question is from Ozzy. Ozzy is asking, is it an intended design decision for PhotonDust to have dynamic modules, as in driving one of the fields on the list and sorting in module by dynamic variables or spatial? It seems kind of funny to do, but could really need for more advanced particle systems. Yeah, you can do that. The idea of like part of like PhotonDust is that it is modular, like, and that makes it a lot more flexible than the old system. And one of the things, like, for example, dynamic loaded modules that can be used, to create all kinds of effects, as, for example, a reactor user. In fact, the audio system, the way it works, it does the same thing with filters. So, for example, the reverb zones, instead of them just being fixed, they actually work as spatial variables, where you have a spatial variable that defines a volume, where there's like a specific component, and then on the listener there's a spatial variable collector which will collect all the variables at particular point in space that are like audio filters, and it'll just dynamically drive them in the list. And like as you keep moving around the world, the list keeps getting modified depending on where you are, and that way we don't need like a dedicated system to handle this. It's handled through a generic system, and you can use this for other things as well. One thing you need to be careful with is making sure that like whatever effects you're doing, it achieves the effect you want, because you can, like, by driving things, you can diverge things for different users, which in some cases you want to do, like depending, for example, where the user is in the world, you want the effects, for example, for audio, like with the reverb zones, like you want it to be diverged. If a user is in a particular zone, you want them to have reverb. If another user is somewhere else, you don't want them to have the reverb. And driving is a mechanism to do that. So if you want to do the same with the particle system, for example, the particles change somehow, you can do that too. The other consideration is, like, generally you shouldn't be like changing the modules too much, because like that's a little bit more expensive. Usually you should like build your setup and then just like enable and disable the modules, but it is like a fair thing you can do. Next question is from our boy. What do you think the default button bindings for Resonite will be on Steam frame controllers? Will jump finally get its own button instead of thumbstick click? Will D-pad just be used at 4 base buttons? Will the new L1, L2 shoulder buttons be used at all? Meant to ask this later week, but looks commented wrong thread. I'm not sure yet. Like, it's one of those things where I kind of like, want to get my hands on the controllers, see what it feels like, and make decisions based on that, because it's one thing, like you can speculate like what would work with those controllers, and then like oftentimes what I find happens is, you get them in hands, you feel like, no, this actually feels this way, So I feel it's gonna be decided, once we actually have our hands on the hardware, and figure out what makes most sense for, the mappings. Which are, again, Valve, please, certificate. Next question's from Nikirako. Just want to say I was a bit skeptical that .NET would be worth it, but I'm feeling like I'm not some improvement in loading processing times for some things without any new bugs. I was also worried I might have issues on Linux, but apparently we have it working on Debian Arch, so that's good. What sort of optimization does .NET incorporate, and what should we be seeing in Resonite? Yeah, so we actually talked about this last stream as well. There's a video clip going over the benefits of .NET 10, so I strongly recommend going on our YouTube channel, checking the latest videos, and watching the .NET 10 one, because you'll get a lot of answers there. In general, we've noticed, there's been performance improvements. Some people got more, some people got less. Specific things got particle improvement, for example, particle systems are a lot smoother. And if you want to know, what sort of optimizations .NET 10 did, there's a lot of them. There's a super long article that, covers that, and it's actually been linked in our release notes in changelog, which is another thing, we recommend checking the sources, because a lot of times you'll find answers to these kinds of questions we already provided. So if you want to know, go to the changelog, find where we updated the build with .NET 10, and there's a link to the article listing all the performance improvements in .NET 10. It's quite a long technical read, so you've also you're asking what performance improvements it has, so that will give you the answer. In short, there's a number of things that are specific to us, highlights. One of the things is improvements to the JIT compiler, which is what takes our code and transforms it into machine code, and it has a lot of new improvements which allow it to do optimizations that oh my god, thank you BD underscore. Oh, they're flying off. Hold on, I'm gonna point it this way so they're kind of flying off that direction.
There's so many.
There's so many.
Help.
Hold on, what if I put it here? There we go. It's gonna be exploding, floating through us. Yeah, particles, better performance. But yeah, it's there's a lot of improvements. The JIT compiler essentially can take the same code and it generates more efficient code. So we essentially get, performance boost without us having to change our code. One of the things, for example, that helps, it can do a lot better devirtualization, which is it removes some of the overhead of all calling methods. It does a lot better. There's improvements to the libraries as well, for example, some of the systems and net frame, in the .NET, for example, the thread scheduling, which is one of the things that helps, the particles be smoother, because we use those libraries for our code, and when those get improvements, we benefit from them. It also does, there's a number of improvements to the garbage collector itself, but also one of the things I'm super happy about that improved is they added something called escape analysis. And what it does is it looks at the code, and if you're allocating new objects, it can figure out, at least in some cases, if those objects will end up being used after, or if they only exist within the method. So essentially it takes if they escape that method or if they don't. And if they don't, instead of allocating them on the stack, on the heap, it's going to allocate them on the stack, which is a little more efficient, and it essentially makes it so they don't put they don't create something called GC pressure, which is essentially giving the garbage collector more work to do, and that in turn improves smoothness and reduces hitching. So there's a lot of improvements. I'm gonna just adjust a bit. There's a lot of improvements, and if you want to know more in detail, I do recommend reading the technical article, at least skimming through it, because there's a lot. Every year they do tons and tons of performance improvements, and it just overall it works out to some some general performance improvements across the board. And again, some things get more, some things get less, but all we had to do on our end is change a few numbers from 9 to 10. So it's essentially free, like, it's like very low effort on our end, and we get like a whole year of work by this large developer community on the .NET frame, like on the .NET 10. And next year, similar things gonna happen. Like this has been pretty consistent, like with every .NET release. Like they did a lot of performance improvements. So every year, we'll just get like extra performance without having to do much. We just change a number. Next question. Where to put this? This is a pretty long one. We also ask, like, generally try to keep the questions more succinct if you can. Somebody with the fox emoji. I'm aware of topic. Why can't you just implement X to fix, implement X mod to fix Y issue, or just let the community work on the game? Has been discussed many times before, and I totally get concern of mod quote quality being at times dreadful. But assuming most of it was, if not maybe the way you would have done it, but still good enough, well thought out, and putting concerns about legal hyper conflicting work that might have been turned aside, would you be willing to work with such a developer to integrate such work, or even put out community bounties at the focus, community working groups? How big change would you be willing to accept this way? Small bug fixes would be different from someone, for example, overhaul your overnight. I mean, I get this kind of what's happening with the render project, and assume how that goes will influence what happens with this, but I'd love to hear more regarding the Taipong City. So yeah, it's generally will not integrate like mods themselves, because they are very hacky about how they can approach things. Sometimes we'll see if somebody makes a mod for something, we'll be like, okay, this works really well. We're gonna make that like an official implementation. That, for example, happened, with a PDF support. Because like PDF support is something I wanted to add, but I never really had the time to investigate the libraries for working with PDF files. And somebody made a mod, and they published it, where essentially they added third-party PDF support. And I look at the code, I was like, oh, this library is actually super easy. I can just get the bitmap data. That's all I need. The only thing the mod was doing it in a very hacky way, where essentially it would generate a bitmap, then it would save the bitmap, and it would load the bitmap from the procedural texture, and then push it in. So there was a lot of kind of hoops and jumps that were unnecessary. But it showed me okay, this API for this library is super simple. I can implement this in a day officially, just from scratch. So that happened. So the mod actually helped get the official PDF support, even though we haven't used any of its code, just by kind of showcasing things. So it is very case specific. Definitely smaller bugs, they can be easier to handle, because it's not as a big change. If it's a really big change that overhauls something that there's a lot of architectural considerations. Is it gonna work with the things we're planning to do in the future? Is it architecturally sound? Is it a strong foundation? And that's a lot more involved figuring that out. And especially if it's just some code, then it can be hard to figure out what is the architecture of this, how does it fit with things, because the way Resonite is designed is we plan very, 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 very far ahead. We have plans for just generally how things and systems are going to fit together far into the future. And here's the bus again. So that can be a lot harder. Even then, there can be exceptions, because sometimes there's there's some bugs which seem like a small bug, but it actually requires a lot more complex solution. And sometimes we find people either suggest or do fixes that are very hacky that we wouldn't do ourselves, because those will cause problems down the line. So even small bugs, it might get complicated, and we had it to happen even internally, where somebody was like, I'm gonna fix this small bug, and then it just blows into this a lot more complex thing. So it's kind of very case by case. The render, that is definitely one of the things, we're sort of testing the waters, seeing how this kind of helps. And because we do want to like lean more like into the community, and we're like thinking about like gradually open sourcing the engine so we can expose some parts of it and have people like help fix things, add contributions, add new features even, or maybe just make like forks for like some of the systems. And actually I'll be talking about this a little bit later too. But the main issue I see right now, and the thing I'm kind of concerned the most, is like we do have certain standards for code quality. We need things to follow certain principles, because like there's multiple ways you could do things and it would technically work, but then it's gonna cause like issues down the line, or maybe it doesn't like fit the philosophy of the project. Because for example, one of the big things about Resonite is things just stay synchronized. You don't have to think about it. But to make sure it works that way, you need to design things a certain way. And sometimes then we see people like pushing things that like would break that principle, or would break the principle of backwards compatibility. Like, we are making sure the content keeps working is very important to us. That's one of our like, core principles. So if some change would break that, like, generally it's not going to be accepted, and if it were to be accepted, it's going to be like there needs to be a really strong reason for it. And the problem I kind of have is like, and the part I'm kind of concerned about is like that, like this having like contributions like that is going to add a lot of overhead, where we have to kind of keep enforcing those principles, and we have to kind of come through the code and make sure like it's not breaking that. And the thing that like I'm worried about right now is like whenever we do like, for example, stuff with the renderer, a lot of people don't like read the instructions. Like a lot of the times like people will end up posting things in the wrong place, or post things we ask them not to post or not to focus on, and I just get like feeling that like there's very few people who actually kind of take time to like properly fully like read the instructions and like then follow them. And if we like start like getting more contributions, that's gonna become even more important, because if they don't, like then we spend a lot of time just like sort of moderating stuff around this, and that takes a lot of time from that we could have been spending like developing. So if you're like in the community, like this is like one of the things I feel people should focus on, and like even among themselves, like if you see somebody like breaking some of the like requirements, maybe ask them please like do this thing, do like because if we see people are more what's the word, there's like a word like when people like somebody diligent, like if people are like a little bit more diligent with stuff, that will give us like more confidence that this is worthwhile kind of endeavor, and this is actually gonna help save us like a lot of time. So, and there's like a lot of like good like talent in the community. There's like people can make like really cool things, but when it comes to big project, like making sure to cooperate is very and making things sure things are aligned, that becomes very important. Just kind of like keeping everything together. So yeah, that's kind of I'm gonna talk a little bit more like about it in the future, and we do have like a video on open sourcing as well that's like a little bit older, but like it kind of goes over a lot of this. But like we kind of testing the waters, like seeing how do people react, like how do people kind of like contribute. And there's like a lot of good things, but there's also like things we're kind of concerned about, and it's like how do we improve those things to give us more confidence, pushing this even like more and having like more community contributions. Next question is from let's move this here, from computer user, which is a fake user. Would you be able to talk more about how Resonance works? Reading some form of text post would also work if talking is the best option. Particle system alone is like magic to me, and it would love to know more about it, like how you made it, how it works behind the scenes, stuff like that. I'm especially amazed by how particles slow down to make a render lag less. I love that so much, and further wonder why seemingly any other particle system that I know of at least has implemented something similar. So there's kind of two things to this. one thing I love about particle systems, they're actually like relatively simple in principle in how they work. So what Photon does in background, essentially, like you can think of each particle, it's like an element. It's like a piece of data. And let me just grab a brush. And actually, there is. I've done actually a video on photon dust and how it works. It should be on the YouTube channel, but I'm gonna just do like a quick one. Let's see, geometry line brush. I do recommend checking out like YouTube channel because there is a long video about photon dust when it was first introduced, and we kind of talk all in detail, how it works. But you can think of each particle, it's like a piece of data, and like if you have a particle, like that particle, it can have like a position, which is like just 3D vector, and then it can have like for example size. That's another piece of data. Size, and you can have like color, you can have orientation. You have like few pieces of data that parameterize each particle, and you can have like lots of them in the system. So what happens is like the photon dust, it actually has like big buffers that like fit all the particles. It's essentially just arrays of these values, and then has modules. And what the modules do is they will somehow compute or mutate these properties. So for example, there's position simulator. The position simulator is going to add another one, which is going to add velocity. And actually has a few more like in the background that's sometimes used, but that's not like too important. But it adds like a velocity to each particle. So now each particle also has velocity, which for example tells it it's moving this way and this one's moving this way. And then each simulation tech, like for example the position module, position simulator module, what it does, it looks at the velocity. It looks, this is the current position, and it's going to compute a new position. It's going to update it. And then you can also have like, for example, color over lifetime. So lifetime is actually another thing of the property. So the particle will have like a lifetime property, and it's like a whole buffer of those. So there can be a module which looks at the lifetime, and it computes a new color based on that. For example, changing over time. And essentially, you have like a system where you have like a bunch of modules that are all like reading and mutating these properties. You also have an emitter system, which are essentially like systems which add new particles into the system and initialize them. So like an emitter can be like a sphere emitter, and for example every tick it can emit a bunch of new particles. It just creates new particles, initializes position so they're within the emitter, can initialize the size, can give them some starting color, and then the modules take over and keep updating the particles. One of the core functions is the lifetime that keeps actually decreasing over time, and once it like reaches 0, the system will remove the particle from the system and the particle will disappear. There's a fair bit like more like once you kind of get into the modules, but that's kind of like the core principle of it. So you have like lots of pieces of data and have modules which work on those data and mutate them somehow, or do things with them, and then you have systems which introduce new particles, and you have a mechanism for particles to die, to essentially be removed from a system. For the asynchronous nature, there's actually like one of the things, like one of the principles of Resonite and Froox engine in particular is because this is like user content platform for VR, and VR like you don't want to like the user. If using something like Unity editor, for example, and you run expensive task, the whole editor like will lock up for a while. Or in Blender, you apply a modifier, everything locks up. That's annoying, but like you can still use your other apps. In VR, when it happens, it's bad because your entire world freezes. So from the ground up, Resonite and Froox engine, like it's designed to be strongly asynchronous in nature. And I think like a lot of like engines, they don't really take this approach because they kind of didn't need it for VR, and like even like VR platforms, they're generally like built on the existing tools which were like very heavily synchronous. So like they just, even if they wanted to, it would be a lot harder for them to like switch those principles. But because Froox engine, we cannot measure our own engine, it was designed from the ground up to be very asynchronous for a lot of the things, to prevent those kinds of things from happening, and from the user getting like locked up. And the same thing happened when we were our particle system was the Unity-based one, it would lag you. Like if it was too heavy, it would lag you because that's how the particle system works in Unity. You know, that's how it works in most engines. It wasn't until we made our own system that we're actually able to make it asynchronous and follow, you know, one of our principles that we use when designing this platform. And it's just, it was a lot of work. You know, it takes a fair amount of work to, like, you know, just build something from scratch. But it's like, you know, work, like, I'm really happy with it. Like, Photon Dust is like one of the things I'm most proud of and I wanted to do for a long while. There's also like another aspect is like sometimes, you know, making systems asynchronous, it makes it a little bit harder to control, you know, making sure they kind of stay in sync. Because, like, you know, like, if it starts like lagging, like you actually have to spend a lot of time, like, you know, tweaking and tuning the system to make sure, you know, actually introduce like multiple levels of buffering just to make sure the particle system, if you have enough performance, making sure it kind of stays running with the same performance you have, and that can become quite tricky. And that's actually, I think, like another reason like why other engines don't do it, because like they want to keep everything in sync and they don't want, you know, like, you know, the particle system like temporarily becoming like, you know, out of sync, because that can lead to some visual artifacts. But in our case, the visual artifacts are generally more acceptable, like, you know, than the user fully lagging. If the particle system freezes, that's, you know, a lot less jarring than everything freezing. So we kind of made, you know, the design decision. But if you're like making, say, some AA game, you know, you won't, that's not gonna be that important to you. If you're like, you know, a game studio and you're making a game, usually you will have like, you know, some kind of performance budget, and you're actually gonna tune the particle system so it doesn't lower your frame rate. Like, you're not gonna, you know, make things just explode in way too many particles than like the hardware you're targeting can handle. You have your designers be like, you know, yeah, we need to like reduce this and make sure this keeps it within performance budget. With user-generated content, you know, that's not gonna happen. People are gonna be like, oh, particle system, I'm gonna add a few zeros and, you know, just explode in particles. So for us, this is a lot better kind of, you know, decision to make. And it's just combination, you know, it's combination of that for us with user-generated content, that's much better approach. It's much better approach for VR, and we are able to take that approach because we're largely building our own engine, which most other platforms don't do. So that's kind of like, you know, this kind of. For the details of the Photon Dust, I do recommend that YouTube video, because I go into a lot more details on how the simulation works and such. So check that out. But I hope this helped. Oh wait, we got another one. This is a very, very long one. I'm not sure if it's even gonna be readable on the stream. I might not read the whole thing. Like, generally, please keep your questions succinct. Like, you know, we don't. Let's see. Eventport is asking, have you ever considered making groups, being able to share storage with groups, more general accessible to average supporter? I personally think there are a lot of users who cannot afford supporter tier, but they have friends that could afford lower tiers of storage and don't tend to use full amount of their own. So because of that, they don't ever really get higher tiers because they don't need to. I think maybe if more supporters could give storage to groups and make groups, we would see higher demand for storage, since those people could share their storage with their friends who can be more reactive in building but currently lack the space. I'm asking this because my friends, Sylvia and myself, Brie, have wanted to work on projects together, but now this justify group memberships, which means to collaborate projects we would have to expose projects publicly, being ready to release them. Brie was unable to actually contribute to Frogboy because someone with a very high tier gave them extra storage while they had been working on it and nearly running out of space. If making groups and sharing storage with groups available to average supporter, we would have made use of my 25 GB of storage. I'm only using 7 GB without having to depend on someone random generosity. I think that one of the biggest limiting factors for high-quality refined worlds is like Shaded Cove, the Frogbog, is flag storage groups. As they are right now, incredibly limiting creativity. This would be a major step toward making big projects like these possible for users who aren't very well off but want to contribute. I'm actually not sure what exactly you're asking. Like, if you're asking for groups to become free, or if you're like just asking for people with lower tiers to be able to, you know, share storage with a group. So I feel for the sharing the storage on lower tiers, that's a maybe. Like, you know, maybe we could like let people with lower tiers like contribute their storage, you know, to a group. making groups free, we probably wouldn't do that, like, or like making it like at lower tiers, because right now things are sort of priced, to make sure, because there's essentially two things that are pushing against each other. It's like, one, ideally, if we wanted to, just from the pure creator, perspective, we would give everyone like, unlimited free storage, unlimited groups, unlimited everything, so people can just go creative, not be limited by anything. The problem is, it costs money. It costs money on our end, and the development of this platform costs money. We need to keep the lights on. We need to keep make sure people working on this platform can be paid. So that's the kind of other thing that's pushing against this, where we need like some source of revenue. And if we make certain changes to the Patreon, for example, and those changes would lead to losing revenue, because people now like drop their tiers, that could harm us, and it could harm, our ability to kind of work on this platform in the first place. And maybe that wouldn't affect you right away, but like, eventually that would affect the community. So what we have to do is, find the sort of right balance, between like the business needs, and making sure we keep going and keep like developing this platform, and like making things available and accessible. And those things are sort of like pushing against each other, like they're like to sort of like opposite goals. So, and that kind of becomes difficult, like this is something we would have to sort of evaluate and see, would this make people drop their tiers? Because if it would make a lot of people drop their tiers, we probably wouldn't make it a change, because right now, we don't have much of a like, wiggle room, or what's the word? We don't have like, our budget is pretty tight, essentially. So, making changes that can be risky, we're gonna be kind of averse to that because of that. Because, if that risk doesn't pay off, that could be worse. And like, it's also like a lot worse because, say, like we made it, at lower tiers, and we'll be like, oh no, this is now causing us like lose a bunch of revenue, and like now, we're gonna go into the red. We need to bring the prices back. That could make things even worse, because like if it's generally people will like if things like prices are lowered for things, but they don't like when they go up, and that makes it a lot harder to make that initial decision. So unless like we're really sure this is not going to affect us negatively, we're probably not going to make that change. And I feel like maybe sharing the space that feel has low risk, because it still like incentivizes people, like, and there's some like people to have a tier where you can like have groups, but even then, like we would want to be sure that like it doesn't end up as like losing a bunch of like funding for the project. Even as much as we want to provide people with the tools and space and things like to like be creative and make like really cool worlds. So that is a pretty complex problem, and like I would probably recommend for the being able to share the groups, your space with the groups, make a GitHub issue. We can like then like discuss it and evaluate like would this be a good change or not. And I'm not promising we're actually gonna make the change. It might be like this is too risky, or maybe we need like more data, but that's generally what this comes down to. And what all of the decisions, with the what is like behind like a paid tier, comes down to. And generally, we want to approach it like so like the paid things are things that kind of make sense, that are like extra storage, because there's monthly costs. We don't want to like one of the things like the way we have it structured is like we don't actually have any actual features like they are behind a paywall. Like all the features are accessible to everyone. At least like most of them. There's like few exceptions, like like there's things like extra badges, but it's like vanity feature. The groups are like another one, but it also kind of ties to the storage because it's additionally kind of costs our end. But in terms of like the building features, what components can use, what tools you can use, that is like not limited, and we kind of intentionally structure it that way. But that means we need to charge for some other things, like especially cloud things. So I hope this kind of helps, understand this a bit more. And feel free to make the GitHub issue. Again, no promises. We will make the changes, but we might discuss it, at least. Next question is from Spobe. Froox, did you know that in the capital of Brazil, most of the trees in the city are mango trees? They stay in season for most of the year, and anyone can take as many as they wish for free at any time. How much are plane tickets to Brazil? I'll eat all of them. It's actually funny because there's a place here. There's like this mountain range called Pustevny, and in the summer it's covered with bilberry bushes, and you can just go there and just be like, nom, 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 nom. Like you can literally collect buckets of them, and it's free. And I really like I really like just getting fruit for free in the nature. It's beautiful. It's free fruit. I'm never gonna say no. Next questions from Abysmal. On the topic of photon-dust particle systems, how far along is the system compared to Unity and other engines? Is it possible to affect particles over a lifetime or spawn new types of particles in collision after a set amount of time? So in terms of how far along, like I feel that's kind of hard to compare because there's like features we have, like for example the async nature that a lot of systems don't have. Also generally like people have mentioned our particle system, it's like higher performance than the Unity one, at least like for equivalent things. So some things like we'll say we're ahead, but some of the things, like for example the spawning particles in collision, that's essentially sub-emitters. We don't support it yet, but it's something that I really want to add, and it would also I would want to kind of integrate, because that's going to lead to a lot of cool effects. In terms of affecting them over their lifetime, there's a bunch of modules that can do that. Depends what kind of effect you're looking for specifically, but there's a number of them already. Like you can do size over lifetime, color over lifetime. There's a bunch. So you need to be a little bit more specific, like which modules you want. There might be more that we can add. And actually, feel free to just make if you want something affected by lifetime or something, make a GitHub issue, and it's awful. A lot of the modules, they might be very simple to add. Sub-emitters, that's a bigger one, but I already know how I'm gonna implement it technically, so I might end up doing that soon-ish, maybe. So with that, that's all the Discord questions. That took quite a bit. So let's look how much we have in terms of there's a good chunk of questions in the Twitch chat. I'm actually gonna we're gonna go through the Twitch live questions. There's actually not too crazy. There's a lot of the subscriptions, thank you. Yeah, I think we can kind of go through this first, because I do want to get into the bigger topic. And there's probably going to be a bunch of questions of that, but we're also going to be talking about it for a while. So I'll let questions pile during that. So we're going to go through questions for a bit, and then we're going to talk about the announcement, one of the things. So the first question is from Grand UK, which is surprisingly not a schnoppet. Janik is asking, I saw that J4 got a client headless building with CI/CD. How much does this help with getting work done? That's huge. That's something we needed for a while. So I'm very happy J4 managed to get this working, and they've been working on it for a good while. So this is I'm very happy with this. It's also gonna it's gonna help once we have molecule, because essentially what we need, we make commits, we push them, and it's gonna make deterministic build. It automatically push to the system. It removes a lot of manual steps we have to take every time I make a build. So this is pretty huge. Next question's from Jack the Fox Author. You've added holes to polygon triangulation, but can you use polygon triangulation to fill holes in your ears? I'm technically, well, I couldn't on this avatar because this is actually just a texture, it's not geometry, so that wouldn't work. In case you haven't seen, like, I made like a devlog, like one of the small things I've kind of wanted out for a while is like a triangulation algorithm, and I'm adding one that is called, let me actually see, I have a video saved, so I can show you. It's called constraint Delaunay triangulation. And what it essentially does is like the algorithm, I'm gonna play the video so you can kind of see it live. What the algorithm does is you give it a loop, like a vertices, and essentially it fills it with triangles. And you can see, I'm just drawing like a loop with a brush and it's making like this like shape. And this is like a very important building block for like, bunch of future features. Like it's gonna be a feature of its own, like I'm gonna expose that brush so you can like draw like these doobly-doop shapes. But it's also gonna be used like, for procedural generation, for like mesh editing, and lots of other things like procedural text. So if you have like a loop, say like, just like this shape, and this is composed of vertices, you essentially give it this loop, and it's gonna figure out, okay, I'm gonna put triangles like this to fill that with triangles. The algorithm, it also supports, like when you give it a loop, you can give it more loops that are within the shape, and it's gonna, it's gonna fill this, but keep those holes. But it essentially works on those loops, like, of those things. You can't take, like, existing geometry to add holes to that. That would be more like a Boolean modifier, and that's like a different thing, which might end up like using this algorithm. Like if it generates, loops that need to be triangulated, that might end up being a thing, but this on itself will not do that. It's like more like a building block. Next question's from Relash86. They're asking what world is that? This is called the Sunset Galaxy. It's one of the MMC entries. It's in the featured world, so I strongly recommend checking it. It has a bunch of like areas. There's like this bus that you saw just like fly by that takes you to different planets. It's very cool. It kind of reminds me of Outer Wilds. I almost said Outer Worlds. We got a cheers, thank you. Modify Arc is asking, since chat control passed in Europe, what will Resonite need to change in order to comply with the new digital surveillance laws? We're not sure yet. That's like a thing, like, we need to figure out, like, with like lawyers and stuff like that. So don't have like anything to like announce like on this end right now. Navy 3001 is asking, will bubble worlds be able to be added onto items like the TARDIS? That's not quite bubble worlds. That's more like, having like embedded like sessions, which is a bit different. It's kind of similar-ish, like, having another session within something, but the point of bubble worlds is like you just kind of create like extra session on top of existing worlds to like, just do maybe some editing when you don't have permissions, or maybe if you don't want to like, bug people. It's gonna be using same underlying systems, but the bubble worlds specifically are, are more like, it's more like just like, like you have like an overlay on top of existing world. Almost like think of it like, augmented reality layer on top of another world that's also like its own world. Rather than like, a world that's within an item. But the same systems that are like kind of gonna be used for some of that are actually gonna also like, be eventually for like, the domain system, which will let you do that kind of stuff. Also, please don't bump issues. Like if you had a question mark, like it's gonna show up. We just take a bit to show through things. Just be patient, please. Master mentioned. Since you mentioned that you plan on building a new PC, what is your opinion on PC RAM prices lately? I haven't actually checked, like I haven't even gotten to planning new PC stage because there's like some things I want to like get first, so like I don't know, I heard like they are higher, but I haven't really looked. Marcus is asking, how far should people depend on slot naming and structure of generated slots, such context menu? Generally you shouldn't. Usually it's better to like use like dedicated systems to access, structure of things, because the actual slot naming and structure can change. Gren UK is asking, what are any stoppers from you moving to Linux? So one of them is like, I use Visual Studio for development, doesn't really work on Linux. I would probably have to switch to Rider, which is like a commercial license, so there will be like additional cost I have to worry about. There's some other software, like for example, for like some of the like 3D scanning stuff and like some of my work I use like some of the Adobe software. Unfortunately, I've been like looking into alternatives, but there's like one function particular for 3D scanning that I haven't found yet, which is the noise removal. There is one software which might have like a really good like noise removal, but I haven't like had chance to kind of like see how well it works, and so I would need to like kind of make switches there too. And then it's also like just general VR support. Right now, like it seems to be like you can get it to work, but like it's a lot of work, and I don't necessarily have the time to like get things to work. I use the Vive Pro like eye tracking, and I know Psyder has been like getting stuff to work, but it's just it's very involved, just kind of for the upkeep and getting things working, and I don't necessarily have the time to like make sure I kind of keep things like working. Like I kind of need them to work more out of the box. Next question is Case asking, have you seen the Flexpose trackers? They recently opened Kickstarter, broke their goal within minutes, and then broke £1 million there within a day or two. Yeah, I actually backed them. I got like the Pro Kit, like with the 8 trackers. I know Sarah's pretty excited about them too. He backed them too. So yeah,
yes.
we're really excited about them. It's actually gonna help with the IK rework. Like having more trackers, like that's gonna help, because one of the things that, for example, wanted to add with the new IK is like so you can track your shoulders and do like shoulder shrug. So having 8 like that's gonna help with stuff like that, and having elbows, that's gonna be cool because like that adds a lot of immersion.
Oh yes, I believe Flexpose is now at 2 million.
Yeah, it's very exciting. It's actually from Cyro. Do you want to read this?
Yeah, sure. It says, to Cyro, is there a reason why the Linux script uses the .NET installer intended for CI/CD instead of running the regular installer? Well, it means I don't have to show the user any install screen, and it will just kind of do it on its own. That's really the main reason. It gets you .NET just the same, and I figure even though it's meant for CI/CD, it kind of works for this use case, and like I don't really foresee it breaking because it's still kind of conducive to the intended usage of that script, which is an unintended install. So that's primarily the reason.
There we go. VR is asking, I'm gonna take my Discord question. Did we like miss a question? What was your Discord question? If you ask about, if you ask it like after we started stream, like we only bring it like before the stream starts, so you might want to ask it here instead. Just like we can like copy and paste.
Yeah, it looks like they asked it after the stream started. Sorry.
Yummy DevTool is asking question about ARI and Delta Skull Cloud World. As you're probably aware, having one user with bad internet connection can ruin the game for everyone, as audio zones critical for private conversations can break. Do you think Resonite could implement tools that make specifically games that rely on audio and secret information more reliable? There's some things you can do, like for example, like one of the things you want to do is like the user can figure out who they should be sending their audio stream to and just not send any audio data, but you're still gonna run into a whole lot of different issues. Because the user is gonna be like behind, like for example, the voting system in the game, they're gonna be behind on that. When they get, pulled into the cabin or pulled somewhere, they're gonna be behind on that. They might see people, disappear, they might see people where they're not supposed to be. So the main thing is, just like making sure like it like lowering the requirements on the connection, but like if somebody has like internet issues and the internet is like dying, there's like not much you can do because you're kind of hitting the limits of the connection and like there might be losing lots of packets. So I would say like it's still kind of like limited. Okay, so we're getting a bunch more questions. I think we'll probably move to the announcement because like there's probably gonna be questions piling in. There's gonna be like questions piling in, so we're gonna get back to them like after this. Let me open a document. And I figure there's probably gonna be a bunch of questions about this as well, so I'm gonna open this up. So for the past few weeks, I've been kind of working. I kind of started like working on something that essentially I made like my current priority. And like where do I start? So like I've been like really doing like too many like in terms of feature work. I've been kind of focusing on more some like fun project, and it's sort of like related to that. But I'll spend a lot of time, putting together like documents, writing down ideas, because the thing I've been kind of focusing on, and then I'll spend a bit more time focusing on as the team, and now starting to implement some of the changes, is changes to the process to improve essentially the sort of positivity and mental health as part of the development. Because for a while, like we kind of left things as it is, and it's been kind of getting a bit more kind of difficult, like just kind of keeping with the updates, because we're kind of like for a long time been just kind of in this like daily grind of like bug fixes, features, adding things, like responding to feedback, like, and it's just constant, like it's a constant grind, and it kind of becomes difficult, and some of that loop just kind of becomes more like draining, and it kind of makes it more difficult to work on things, and it kind of got to the point where we're like, we need to prioritize certain things now to just improve the mental health, improve the positivity, make things kind of exciting again. So what we'll be doing is we're going to be making a number of changes. We're going to publish sort of a discussion and a bunch of documents and things where there's like several initiatives, to just change the process and improve the process. And that overall should be, making changes that like change the whole development loop into something that is like, less draining and more positive, and gives us more energy and makes us more excited to work on features. And the way we want to approach this is like open it as a discussion as well with like you, with the community, because we want also your ideas. What would make things feel better? What makes things kind of more fun and more exciting? But we have a lot of ideas of our own. This is going to be published soon, so we'll be able to like read everything, but we wanted to sort of bring it up through the live stream, so you can kind of ask us questions, and we can kind of sort of clarify it, because people like will kind of skip through things, and sort of don't read something. So we figure, thank you Video Discord, and so many more subscriptions. Oh my god, there's so many. Thank you.
Bruh.
But yeah, there's a number of changes, and I kind of want to go over them, so we have like this is probably gonna end up like being cut into like some smaller videos as well, so you can like if people don't like to read, like there's something to watch. So there's a number of ideas like I'm gonna kind of have like how to improve the overall sort of like positive development, how to make things like feel better, how to like improve our processes and development loop. So one of the things is we're gonna be adding 2 new issue templates. There's gonna be because one of the things I've been kind of doing is sort of looking at things. How do we actually develop this? How do we like work on this? How do we publish updates? How do we process feedback? And sort of, and I got like this advice from Edgar actually, like has kind of been dealing with some like issues like as well in the past. He has a lot of experience, and he suggested to me, look at this as a project. You know, like this is like a bug to fix in a way, or it's like a feature to add. You know, like but just kind of take the same approach with this as I would take like solving technical problems. And one of the things is like for example with GitHub. There's two things that oftentimes, I feel like are two biggest sources of kind of like, frustration. Is one, oftentimes we ask people, to focus more on like the underlying issue, certain like specific solutions, because it becomes kind of difficult for us to decipher like what is actually the problem, because we see like the solution they want, but maybe the solution doesn't quite work, or we're kind of confused why they need it. So we're gonna add a issue template that's right now we're calling it a friction point observation. And what it's gonna be is essentially just documenting, be like the user, which can be yourself, it could be somebody else, it could be a new user who you noticed, struggling with something. You notice them, they want to do something, like for example, they want to bring their avatar in, or they want to join people. They have certain goal. And then, could be like things, what did they try to do, and what was the friction point? What did they, like, where did they get stuck? And that's, the information we need. Like, we don't need to focus right away on what the solution is, we just need to understand where people get stuck. So now we'll have, like, this issue template, where if you notice this in your users, if you notice it in yourself, if you get stuck on something, you wanted to do something, create, like, this type of issue, and we can look at like these issues and be like, we could think of like those features that will solve these problems, because a big part of our development work is actually being kind of creative, figuring out new features, figuring out solutions to problems. But with existing GitHub issues, we kind of get like almost like like kind of robbed of that process, where it's like very focused on like this is the solution like we want, like and like we just kind of implement like things like people want, and like it kind of drains a lot of the fun and a lot of the kind of creativity from the development process. So by having issue that's specifically for this purpose, I feel this might kind of help direct people like to providing that kind of feedback. So that's the one type of issue. The other type of issue is like it's stemming from another observation I kind of made. It's like where GitHub is pretty much like all about things that are wrong. It's like there's this bug, there's there's like a missing feature, there's like something that's hard to do. It's all focusing on the negative stuff. And to sort of balance things, the other type of issue is gonna be a positive observation. So if there's some change we made. Because essentially right now, like GitHub is like letting us know all the things that are wrong. But to balance it also helps us, to know what things we actually did right, what things helped you, what things improved your workflow, what features like excited you. So we're gonna have like another issue for it. And if you have like any feedback, if something helped you, if something helped you and improved like your workflow, this would be a good issue type, and it would be good to let us know, because one, it helps to balance the mood, but also we will want to do more of that. If we see like this is working, this is making people happy, this is making people excited, this is improving things, we want to do more of that. Like whenever like I see, for example, people making cool things with PhotonDust, I'm like, I want to add more PhotonDust modules. I want to like let people do even more things, and that's like a much better place to be coming at things from features and improving things, than like the more kind of negative aspect. So I feel this is kind of help like in kind of multiple ways, and also like let us know because we want to know like these things are wrong, and none of that's going away. It's still very important for us to know things that need to be fixed, that need to be improved, but it's also important to know the things that went right, because that helps us both like mentally, like like it's not all bad, like there's things that we did change that like are good, and we want to do more of that. And it's also like, giving a better direction, because we do want to keep doing things that keep making people happy and that keep making, it's like, it essentially just gives like, it's a much better kind of like, motivator. So those are going to be 2 new issue types that I'm going to be adding to GitHub. They're going to appear soonish, and there's also going to be written description, so you can kind of see more like they're meant to be for. One more thing I'm going to mention for the friction point observation. The important thing for those issues is to keep it objective, like, keep emotion out of the issue, because what it does, it just kind of adds, noise. And we want to focus on fixing the problems and fixing the friction points. So we're going to be asking people, keep it neutral, keep focusing, this is what I wanted to do, or this is what somebody wanted to do, this is where they got stuck. That's like, what we need to do to actually fix the issue. And that's going to be kind of mentioning those things. So that's one of the changes we're planning. Another thing that we want to introduce, and actually kind of started doing it a bit, is something that I'm currently calling like a creative experimentation day. Because a lot of the work we're doing is, stuff that needs to be done. It's like GitHub issues, bug fixes, like things broken, adding features, like this needs to be done, this needs to be done, this needs to be done. And it's just like, all of that. And it kind of, one thing I noticed, it pushed out like, all the fun stuff. Stuff that's like really like, they're just like cool things to do that necessarily don't have like, like be like, this is the priority thing. And I feel that kind of like, shifted the balance where it's kind of become unhealthy. And to kind of, because like development, like especially with a platform like this, it's meant to be fun, like this is like, it started as a passion project. And if we don't have, we only have like things that really, really need to be done, it suffocates a lot of that passion. So we need to bring, a bunch of that back and have like some time that we dedicate to just, having fun with it, like making cool features, where essentially the only prioritization is gonna be like, is it fun? Do you want to work on it? We're not gonna care like, how many uploads it has. We're not gonna care, how many people are asking for it. Is it fun? Do we want to make it? Because oftentimes those things also like, lead to things that people then end up like liking a lot. Because a lot of things that kind of stem from passion, it's kind of, it's kind of like always reminds me of like, that quote from Henry Ford is like, if he asked people like, what they wanted, he would have built a faster horse. Because there's like certain ideas, we have that people will not, like people won't be asking for them because people don't even think to ask them, because, there are ideas that like, what sort of drives the project. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna have one day of the week. It can be different for each developer, but one day of the week, we're just gonna spend on fun things. And we're gonna like, stick to it. Sometimes there's gonna be, complications. Sometimes maybe we need to deal with, emergency or some deadline that's gonna move it, if that it requires us to sacrifice that fun thing, we're gonna take like, to the next week. So the idea is essentially, like if something is a fun, creative, experimental feature, there's like one day dedicated to it. We still have, 4 days of the week working on things that need to be done, but there's like, that one. When something is in that stage, we're also gonna ask people, please keep into that spirit of experimentation. Even if we have like, for example, concerns, or things you want, make your feedback encouraging, because like, just kind of, if we get excited about something, and like people are just like, no, I shouldn't be doing it, like it kind of kills a lot of the excitement, and that can be like, very damaging. So we're gonna ask people, and we're gonna like also try to make sure that those things are marked, this is our experimentation fun thing. There's the other side of this is like, if something is in that phase when we're just kind of experimenting, it doesn't necessarily, there's no expectation that it actually gets merged. Like it might not even make it, to the to the builds. It's just like, want to play around. Maybe the idea works out, maybe it doesn't. If the idea works out, then it moves into normal feature. And, at that point, like, we're going to be like, okay, there's these concerns, we need to make sure, compatibility, like, it doesn't break things and so on. That's kind of where it becomes a little bit more involved, but not before it exits, the creative experimentation stage. So that's going to be another kind of big change. And actually, I got this idea for, like, I know, like, some companies actually do it, like, where they would, like, dedicate, like, actually comes from the biggest example is from Unity, where I don't know if they still do it, but like they would dedicate every Friday where developers just work on whatever, like they just experiment with ideas. And like there's a lot of cool projects for Unity that actually stemmed from these Friday, like, experimentations where it's just free to explore and experiment and so on. So I wanted to kind of introduce something similar. There's let's see. So that is another thing that we want to do. Another thing we want to do is like encourage people in the community to essentially share more positive experiences, on the Resonite, because we want to see, like, when we make features, when we improve things, or just people generally using the platform, we want to see people are having fun, people are like enjoying the platform. And as even we know there's gonna be friction points, there's gonna be problems, not everybody's gonna like it, but we need to know there's both. It's not just the it's like we need balance for it. So we want people to encourage people to share more on social media, share more like like just publicly showing things they're building and showing the fun people are having on the platform. And there's a few ways we want to do this, like, and one of them actually we kind of started, on the last Resonance, is like we just go through a bunch of posts on Blue Sky, people showing stuff on their, stuff they've done on Resonite, we showcase it, we want to encourage more people to do it, because the thing you made, it might end up on one of the streams, and then we bring the, like, really coolest ones, we bring them, to the recap streams as well. That way, there's more of a kind of incentive, like, to doing this kind of sharing. There's more things, like, for example, one of the small things I want to implement that's going to help is like having like Blue Sky embed, so like you can just copy the link and it pastes it, shows all the video, the text of the post and so on. This going to make it very easy, like, to do this regularly, instead of just, screenshotting my dash. We also want to eventually, like, and I'm not saying we're going to prioritize this one right now. At some point though, we want to add like additional features where, for example, say like a take screenshot, want to make it so you could do a video this way. So you could just like trigger a quick video recording, here pops out a video, and then another feature is like you could like, tie Resonite into your social like media account, for example, to Blue Sky, and then directly on the video you can just post it. Maybe write a little thing and post it and it handles it for you. Lower the friction of doing that, because I feel by reducing the friction, if you reduce the friction of doing that, people will do it more. And if people do it more, we'll both like, have material to share, we'll have like more, we'll see more cool things that people are doing on the platform, that's gonna help motivate us, like, do more. And also it helps us, grow the community, because one of the big problems we have is there is a lot of people on the platform who are having fun, who are doing a lot of cool things, but a lot of people outside of Resonite don't really know about it. And by showcasing, some of the positive things, some of the fun people are having, we essentially kind of, like encourage more people to check like Resonite out and grow the community, which in turn, just helps everything. So that is another thing that we want to do, is essentially encouraging everyone to share. And we also would want to know, once the discussion opens, what would help you, like what would like make you want to share things, more. The next thing we want to do, this is also going to help, this is more kind of like on team, but also like part of the community. We want to encourage people to like, ask things in the right channels. So essentially put together a list of like, if somebody has this kind of issue, go to hit up. If somebody has this kind of issue, find a mentor. If somebody has this kind of issue, make a moderation ticket or make a support ticket, or bring it to office hours. If you have like a list, like, sort of a guide, like direct people to these places, we're gonna have it both for our team, so like, our team knows like to direct people, and also for the community. So if you see somebody, asking in the wrong place, you can suggest like this might be a good thing to bring to the office hours. That way, there's better kind of communication, and people know there's like specific points where we are gonna be answering their questions, and we can learn more about the platform. And instead of like, relying on like a lot of hearsay, a lot of like rumors that can be spreading around, people can get the questions answered like, from the actual official sources. So documenting that and having that like, as a thing so anybody can link and point to, like, I think that's gonna help that as well. Another thing that's we might actually end up like prioritizing soonish, like as a feature, is doing parts of the molecule system. And like, J4's started been like working on the CI/CD, which is actually gonna flow into that, because right now publishing builds, there's a fair amount of manual steps involved. Which takes time away from actually developing. It also is more error prone. Like sometimes like I make mistakes like when pushing the buttons, and then have to deal with it, and it's stressful. It also makes it difficult to run multiple pre-releases, and as we have more engineers on the team, we only have one pre-release channel right now, and it's kind of harder to do. We have like it's difficult, like, it's difficult to just run things, and then like when I'm reviewing, team members like contributions, we need to be a lot more careful before like pushing the updates out, and even then some stuff still slips. So with the molecule and the CI/CD, every time a team member makes a PR, that can essentially end up being, its own pre-release branch for a specific feature. The team member can bring it to the community and can you do a bunch of testing on this? So before it even gets merged, we can get a bunch of testing, make sure it's as stable as it can be before it gets merged, and overall I feel it's gonna help like the process. So it's gonna like, lead to like less bugs. It's gonna lead to less like disruptions like in the main branch, and it's gonna reduce a lot of the overhead. It's like, on me specifically too with the PRs, because I can be like, like this got pre-released, this got tested with a bunch of people in the community. I don't have to, like read through the code and think of like what possible bugs might happen with this. So that's gonna be another thing that's just gonna help improve our overall process, with Resonite. And then I was gonna mention, like, I'm gonna be like talking about this a fair bit. One of the things that I feel also gonna help like long term is doing gradual open sourcing of Resonite. And I'm not making an announcement right now like of like exactly when we're gonna do it, like under what license, stuff like that. It's still kind of like we need more discussions internally. But generally what we want to do is like, open pieces of Resonite, piece by piece, and allow community to make essentially to make like, contributions, back fixes, and reducing, some of the pressure like on us. The way we want to approach it is like, we're gonna do it first for things like, where it's like we don't have to worry too much about like, breaking compatibility, for example. So for example, we want to do like import-export modules. So for example, if there's issues with importing certain models, people can make like, contributions to those, make back fixes there. Or we can like even add your own importers. So like we will allow, for modules, like for importers, to be essentially loaded more like plugins, where they don't break the compatibility between builds, and it just introduce new support for new formats that you can now bring into Resonite. And even if something is something we wouldn't include officially, like it's gonna be something like you install like as a third party. Or maybe like you need to modify the importer, for the studio specific needs for a project you're working on. You can make a fork, build of our own, and make whatever customizations you need. So stuff like that would help, and it doesn't like, affect compatibility, because it's just gonna, the sort of barrier between bringing content in and out. Another one that I feel is going to benefit from that hugely is device drivers. So if there's like an issue with some hardware, face tracking, trackers, haptics, we allow like communities like make contributions and fixes. If you want support for new hardware, or if you want the hardware to be supported differently, you'll be able to do that as well. So I think that also will like help. That will help reduce some of the pressure on us and kind of help like lean more into the community and give you in the community kind of more control over parts of this platform, while still keeping like probably gonna keep the core closed for longer. I don't know exactly how it's gonna look for that one yet, because the one thing we do want to avoid is like fragmentation, where like if we open source the whole thing right now, it would fragment into like a bunch of different versions that are not compatible with each other. And I feel with the size of the community we have right now, thank you, set the gear for great. With the size of the community right now, that would like it might be too risky to do right now. So I feel that's like a thing for once we kind of grow more and once we have kind of more developed. Once we have kind of more developed sort of like processes for some of the things and some of the technical things too. So yeah, that's kind of covers. I'm just kind of checking the document, and all of this, everything they kind of announced like that we plan to do. Some of this we'll be doing right away, like so in the upcoming weeks. Some of it like are features for a bit later. But overall, essentially the main focus right now is improving the mental health, improving the like positivity, because that's gonna make it much easier to work on future things. And we've kind of reached a point where it needs to be a priority. It needs to be something like that's not just in the background on the side, because it kept getting just pushed off for so long. And it needs to be like focused on right now, so we can kind of keep going and we can keep working on this platform for like years down the line. So all of this is gonna be another actually one more thing I kind of missed is we're gonna publish also like more documents. Like one of the things I wrote is like a technical manifesto and sort of design principles. So by by writing those down, I feel, and sharing them with everyone, I feel it's gonna make it easier for people to sort of understand the philosophy of how this platform is developed and how what sort of principles we follow and what principles we stick to. So that's gonna be another thing we're gonna share as part of this. So yeah, I'm gonna publish the document soonish. Might not be next week, because next week I'll be like at MFF and I'll be traveling. It's probably gonna be like the week after that. And it's gonna have everything kind of written down. It's gonna be like discussions, so you can help contribute as well. Like if you have ideas, or if you have things. But overall, this is what I've been kind of focusing on myself especially, and what I'm not gonna be like focusing on putting some of these things in place. Because if we have better processes, if we have better development loop, that's gonna help everything that kind of comes everything that comes afterwards. So I think that kind of covers everything. We're gonna be also I feel there's probably a bunch of questions as well, so we're gonna go through those. But thank you for listening to this. I hope this kind of, I know it's kind of not the feature focus right now. Well, there's gotta be some features that are related to it, more kind of smaller for some of them. But this is gonna help us make the whole process more healthier. So with that, let's go to the questions. There's a lot of subs again. Thank you.
There's a lot of money.
There's a lot of money, thank you. So there's probably gonna be a few questions that are not related to this, but we have how much time do we have? Actually, wait, what time?
We
we
got
don't.
about like
25 minutes.
left.
We might skip the social thing because this was like a longer announcement. So we're gonna go through the questions as fast as we can because we don't have as much time. So like at this point, the questions might not get answered if there's too many. I don't know how many there is. I try to go through them as fast as I can. Zemark is asking, with Perflux as an asset, what do you think about Perflux worklights like the web standard, which run separately from main game, like audio worklights for custom audio effects, perhaps even mesh worklights for procedural custom meshes? So there's like different things. So like one thing I kind of wanted to do with Perflux is like where you can actually build something that's like, you know, web like request response. So like once we introduce more stuff on the cloud, for example, some database stuff, you know, you could maybe have like something that processes and like, you know, updates things, and you could just build some Perflux and it's gonna run as a like, you know, a web thing. But like, you know, doing stuff like, for example, like you call it audio workloads, we have like the audio DSP or mesh DSP that's gonna like, you know, be able to generate those things. There's something that's already planned. We have like GitHub issues for those, and actually the way Perflux is designed, so like unless it's using stuff in the Froox engine, you can actually run it separately and outside of it. So one of the planned features is you could potentially have, you know, the audio DSP, and if it's not tying into Froox engine, you could run it externally. You could like, you know, just export it as a thing, or you could even run it like a, you know, web. There's like lots of different ways to run Perflux, so there's definitely going to be some of that. It doesn't even need to be like, you know, Perflux as an asset. There's like multiple ways to kind of serialize it, but it's going to make it easier. There's some discussion with things, I'm going to skip that. This one's for Sire. Alex P is asking, Sire, how does it look currently with integration of things like Blender and Fmpeg on Linux?
Sorry, I realized I had accidentally muted myself while I was reading that out loud.
Oh.
Are there issues open on those? I'm admittedly not.
Open GitHub issues for it, like if there's not GitHub issues.
Yeah, I would definitely open issues for those if there aren't already, because I don't think I've seen them, and if I haven't, I'm sorry.
Andrew Boy, Froox doing lately, staying safe, reset mentally, yes, were multiple questions. I'm kind of covered it like a lot with the big announcement, so I'm gonna skip that one because we got like not too much time. BD underscores asking, if FlexPost is going to help with IK rework, does that mean IK rework won't come before Q3 26? Not like this. No, that doesn't. Like we can, like, I still use like, you know, the normal trackers, so it's not dependent on that.
Yeah, full body does exist. We can still work on it. It's okay.
Varax 120 is asking, any plans to expand physics engine Resonite currently uses? Yes, we do plan to add rigid body support at some point. There's a GitHub issue for it, like give it upvotes if you want. We also did like videos on it in the past. There should be some like on YouTube channel. Kawab is asking where inventory update. I can skip that. There's gonna be part of like the UI rework. We don't have like an announcement on that one. Skipping that. Bersert's asking, you mentioned it's a friction point template, but described as getting stuck. I consider friction points to be much more general than just getting stuck. For example, friction point for me could be general lack of QL for reducing repeated key presses and inputs to reduce hand pain. So component, is it something that fits into the friction point category? Is friction point much more limited? Fixing definition of getting stuck working with a system? No, it can be that too. Like, it's essentially like, friction doesn't mean necessarily just getting stuck. It might be like, you know, this thing you want to do is difficult, or like, you know, like it could be either you didn't figure out how to do it, or like it's just too complicated to figure out. It was too much pain. So like I would say it fits the definition. It's essentially, you know, something that is general. Dinos, I had to beat the dead horse, but what needs to happen before hard perms and collections can be implemented? That's just a question of prioritization, so they need to be prioritized. There's a lot of questions within the chat. Please keep like the question. If you're like just talking about himself, like yourself, like please keep it to minimum because it pops on our thing. Modify arc. Will users get a new badge or bonus storage for contributing code? I mean, if you do introduce like, you know, like ways to contribute, like that is definitely a thing we would do. Like we love giving badges. We haven't like I said, like this is still, we need more discussions before we actually do this. But like, you know, I see us doing that because we do it for example for translators. If we have like translator, we get a badge. So Granny K, another question, but someone was mentioning about bringing mods into Resonite mainline. I know that Wilers itself, my library for Linux, Wayland clipboard was brought into YDMS GitHub group, might eventually be brought into Resonite mainline for Linux users. I might mention that. Yes, yeah, that's another good example. It actually shows one thing, like where we end up like using some of the code is if you make a library. And it's actually another example is the Open Vicem like analyzer by Kaibioru, because on Linux their issue was, you know, the library for Vicem analysis, it only works on Windows. They don't make Linux binaries. So Kaiobi, like they made their own library and then they made a mod to, you know, add it to Resonite. What we did is we added the support officially using the library they have created. So there's another good way, you know, to kind of contribute is like if you make something as a self-contained library, it has like, you know, a good license we can use, then your work might end up like being integrated that way. Similar with this, because I know like you made like just we were kind of working on that one, I think, where we made like, you know, the wrapper for the library. So things like that definitely help. We still make sure, like, you know, we actually make the integration, you know, properly with our like code base and like using the mod code. But if it's based on a library, then that definitely helps us, and we will, you know, use that if we can. Kistral Boyce is asking, is molecule part of improving dev process? Just curious. Yes. I don't know if this was asked like when I was still explaining. No, this is very recent. I kind of talked about it a bunch, like, but yeah, it'll help improve development process, reduce a lot of stress, reduce a lot of overhead. It's also going to help improve things for the community because we can run, you know, multiple releases and make sure to test more features before they actually hit the mainline. So that's going to help, like, you know, especially with more developers on the team. And actually we cannot shoot through the questions pretty quick. Shylock is asking, any chance we could add some search functionality in the UI update for inventory, settings, Protoflex, inspector searches would be on my wish list. Yes, that is one of the plantings. We actually already have like sort of groundwork for that, because the settings UI, when we reworked the settings UI, that was actually laying groundwork for a lot of the future UI rework, and that's going to make reworking those future UIs much simpler. It uses something we call data feeds, and that makes it much easier to build UIs for Resonite. It makes it so we can build them faster, and we can, like, you know, make them better, because no longer we have to construct the entire UI from the code. We just focus on code that just provides the structure and the functionality, and the actual UI uses reusable templates that our team makes in-game. And part of the data feeds is they natively support search functionality. It's something I haven't like added to settings yet, but even like the settings, they would support, like, you know, search. And the inventory components, you know, like all the other stuff, it's also gonna be like using data feeds, which has, you know, structures necessary for search functionality. So it's just gonna come, you know, to all those UIs. Next question is from Modify Arc. When will Probable Prime get a break from Business Obelisk? I recommend asking him in his office hours, like on Tuesday. I think last time he mentioned like they can expect stuff to be done sometime January, maybe through March. So, but it's a better question to ask him.
If you make a pentagram out of mozzarella cheese, maybe.
Oh my god. Bluebeardo, is Perflex update still a priority? I'm not sure what do you mean, because right now that's not a priority. And I don't know what you mean by Protoflex update, it could mean a lot of different things. Demar's asking, I don't know if it's been covered, but is there a deep dive on Molecule, or will there be one in the future? There actually is a bunch in the GitHub issue. I recommend checking it out, because it actually spells out, a lot of the things that it will do, and there's also going to be more, like, once we make the post about, the priorities, there's going to be a link to that. But you can check the GitHub issue right now, just search Molecule on the GitHub, and you will just find, you will find, like, a lot of info. Zmarcus is asking, would it be possible to allow plugins to provide data feeds usable inside regular sessions? Not without like everybody having the same plugin, because the data feed, like, everybody in the session needs to like have access to the data feed source, which means it needs to be introduced into the data model, so everybody needs to have the plugin. The only way is would be like if it's like something more like a dynamic system, but that's depends what exactly you want to do.
But generally you need to introduce. Run it on the host only, I guess. Yeah, but if you really wanted to, but like
that breaks things. Like that's not gonna work. Jagged Fox Otter is asking, how are you going to enforce people taking the creative day? Are you gonna send them emotion manipulative sad cut stickers if they skip them? No, that's Prime's job. He actually mentioned like doing something like that during the meeting, that he's gonna set like people like sad cat ones. It's technically a thing like necessarily gonna so what we're gonna more focus on enforcing is like if people don't respect it. So if say either people on the team or people on the community, like they will if anybody's like like, oh, like you shouldn't be like working on these things, you should be like working on this, we'll be like, no, this is their day. You don't own their creative experimentation day. They own that. This is what we're doing because our mental health is important. So that's kind of like where we're gonna stick to, like where if anybody pushes against this, we're gonna make sure no, this is a thing we're doing. It's not up to debate. Like like we as developers, we need that one day. It's one day. You still get the 4 other days like are generally kind of focused on things that the community needs and the priorities of the community, but let us have that one day. The redneck, your favorite enum? The dummy enum, I guess. Kester Blaze asking, Half-Life 3 tomorrow? I wish.
No, we only got GameCube.
Would team consider a way to distribute trusted plugins made by community and open source and built by the team to ensure it's safe to distribute? Depends what it is. Like it adds a lot of like extra process because we need to like review the code, and every change you make potentially could sneak something in. And I'm not sure like you would do it, but eventually someone would do it. So that's a lot of process. So and as the community grows, there's going to be more code to review. So I don't know, that depends, like what it would be for. Jagged Fox Otter is asking, how long until I can write scripts for Resonite in COBOL? Once we get the WebAssembly integration, you will be able to, because Cloudflare has made COBOL to WebAssembly compiler, and it's called CobWeb. So once we have WebAssembly support, you will be able to code in COBOL for Resonite. And now we have to live with that cursed knowledge.
We can live in the cursed reality right now because there exists Visual COBOL at this very moment.
Like in game, and somebody made it. What?
It's not in game, but it is COBOL that compiles to .NET.
I can make a plugin with that. I mean, with plugins can make like anything, but it's not like official. Shylock is asking, curious, what's the story behind the holes in your ears? So my character, like he's kind of like sci-fi, so like he's not like organic, but he looks organic. but it's kind of like, you know, sort of made out of like femto machines, which is like, you know, sort of nano machines, but more on the level of like more like elementary particles, which is actually a concept I kind of stole from Greg Egan's books. He writes very hard sci-fi, and the idea of the character is like, you know, it's sort of technology, but it's not like, you know, it's not android, it's not like, you know, a robot, cyborg, whatever. It's technology like it's like at the point like where it just mimics biology, so like looks very biological, behaves like biological, but there's like, you know, little hints that like it's not quite, and like one of them is like, you know, the stripes that are like very precise, and it's also like the ear holes that are also like, you know, very precise that you wouldn't really find in organic. So that's kind of the gist of it.
I wanna put my fingers to them.
Next question, also just kind of speeding through because of like 7 minutes left. Modify Arc is asking, will other team members be able to push smaller updates with their bug fixes features? So technically with the molecule, like that, like it would become easier for like other team members to push things, but generally like the things that kind of part of that is like, you know, it still needs to go through kind of through review and get like merged. So I would say probably not, like there needs to be like, you know, some of the review process, but if there's like a really, if there's like something really urgent, for example, not available, the team could be like, you know, like we need to push this emergency update, this will provide them tools to do that. I mean, technically they could do it right now too, but you know, it's just part of that is like more like, you know, the process, you know, like we need certain like processes to make sure like things don't explode and we don't end up with a bad scenario. So generally we want to follow the process, and part of the process is like, you know, making sure things get merged properly and they're properly reviewed. Someone is asking, when is Perflux going to be rewritten in COBOL? No. Check the Fox out there. Wait, is Froox is a replicator, lower level than that. Sort silverish, I don't know. The Red Echo. Valve was added as advisory member for the Game Awards. Hope him administered. I haven't heard of that. I don't know what's. Is that for Half-Life 3? J4 is asking, CS Education can waste $30 a year. The GitHub Actions plugin for JetBrains. That's J4, I don't know. I mean, it's $30 euros is not much, but ask Bob. We need. Does the sprinkles in reference to my question about groups, do you think you'd be more open to trying it if you had some general survey community sentiment? I think most users would be for it, but I can understand the risk involved. They might help, like, understanding, you know, how people would, like, change things, but, like, we need to get, like, we need to be really kind of confident, like, you know, it's not gonna have negative effects, so we will need, like, a lot of people participate in the survey and understand, like, you know. So with that's all the questions. We have 5 minutes left. Let's see if we can do a very quick blue sky post. Oh, actually, Ason, which is asking a question for both. Are you both excited for the holidays? Yes, I'll be visiting like people in the US and spending time with the glitch. So I'm kind of excited for that. It's always nice. Actually, those things. You're gonna be there.
Yes, I'm going to be there. I'm going to look at you with my meat eyeballs.
Maybe we'll do like a resonance, like IRL resonance or something.
Oh yeah, I'll be there from the 25th to the 6th, though. Okay. Time.
We'll see. No promises. City. I'm sorry, I don't know how to read the name. What gaming chair do you use? I don't. I have some weird chair. Let me see. Hashtag Resonite. If there's anything interesting, I want to bring at least a few posts before we end it. And we can do a little over because like we started like a few minutes later, but
Grant says it's December now. She is thawing out. Run.
Okay, the problem is the top posts right now are mine on the blue sky. Ooh. Somebody's making an avatar. Let's see, I'm gonna... It looks actually really good, it has quite a bit of engagement too. So I still have to do it this way because we don't have, the embed, but it's one of the things, we can add. Looks like Flute. They're making an avatar, like a bird avatar. Actually looks pretty neat, like quite like detail, with a lot of feathers. And they got it to work in Resonite. 68k triangles. That's pretty cool. It's always like cool like seeing more avatars. And I'm sure a lot of people will enjoy bird. Oop, I clicked the wrong thing. Check Resonite, see Resonite posts. Okay, do we get anything else? Ooh, there's this one, Oracle VM Virtual Fox. Let me bring this in. This actually has a video in it. Importer saying Resonite is behaving weirdly. So this is the post. I don't know quite what to expect. Let's watch the video and let me bring the audio up. Let's see what's happening. Oh, they're getting like the effect where the buffer doesn't clear.
Oh.
That is funky. That's... it's like, it's one thing to have like a visualizer, but now the entire world is the visualizer. I don't know if it's like a bug or something, but something like went wrong. They look trippy though. Let's see, we've got the CK, let's see. And then we got a funny post from Colin. Big thongs only happening on Resonite. Yeah, just big thongs. Only in Resonite. Okay. Let's see, any more posts? This is one of mine again. Oh, we got like one from so there was Thanksgiving. Like we don't celebrate Thanksgiving over here, but I figured like a lot of you guys probably do. Let's see if this loads. It's a Thanksgiving video from Autumn Blessings. So let's
show you the world. On a magic turkey ride, a whole new world. What is my life?
only on Resonite. And this is the post in case you want to check it out. Okay.
I like that I can see you taking the picture in like the background of those pictures,
Yeah.
the screenshots.
Yeah, it's kind of because my dash is like transparent. So we're gonna take like 2 quick ones, and then we're gonna end the stream. U1F98A is asking, do I get to submit a bug report live on stream? No, bug reports go to GitHub. We might talk about the bug, but if it's not reported, then like we're probably gonna forget like after the stream ends. So if you want bugs fixed, they need to be reported on GitHub. And Shylock is asking question if you're still taking them. Is there plans to integrate new Steam frame onto Resonite, or is it native because of Steam VR? Yes, we would love to. We applied for a dev kit, so Valve, please. We actually talked about it like on the last Resonance. I recommend going on our YouTube channel on Resonite, and there's like a video about our thoughts on Steam frame. It kind of goes like over it, like we don't have time anymore. But you'll be able to learn more about our thoughts and what we want to do with it. So with this, thank you everyone for watching. I hope like you enjoyed like this resonance. There's not gonna be one next week because I'll be at MFF. So there's probably gonna be one after that. I don't know how it like works out time-wise, but you'll see. I'm gonna like let you know in case like that one's cancelled too. So I guess we'll see you in 2 weeks. Thank you everyone, for watching, for all your questions. Thank you everyone for like, using Resonite, supporting us. Thank you so much for the subscriptions as well. This like helps the development too. And yeah, like everybody like, I hope like, thank you for listening, on the like, what we're gonna kind of, focus on. There's gonna be more information coming out too. Probably the week after the next one. But yeah, thank you for watching. Thank you for like, supporting this platform and like, just kind of being part of it and making cool things. And I guess we'll see you in 2 weeks. And we're gonna check if there's any interesting channel to raid. We like to like raid any like Resonite streamers around this time. Oftentimes there's just creator jams, so like if you want to stream around this time, this might be a good time because you will get raided. Actually, there's not even creator jams, so unfortunately this ends here. We don't have anywhere cool to send you guys. So thank you again very much for watching, and see you in 2 weeks probably. Bye.
Bye bye.